If this isn't a sign of the times, the New York Times just posted an article about comparing the Great Resignation, everyone quitting because they're overworked, understaffed, and underpaid. They compared it to an infectious disease. We don't have a work shortage problem. We have a corporate greed problem that is really starting to become obvious. You're right, we have a disease. We want to be treated like humans. Oh my God, that sounds awful. What a disease. I'm sorry that we just want to be able to afford to live. That's too much to ask for, honestly. I'm sorry. We are sick.
So, capitalists in the United States are really freaking out, and here's why. Many workers are at a breaking point. The cost of living is skyrocketing. The cost of rent is skyrocketing because landlords are buying up every residential property they can find. That hedge funds, that giant real estate investment companies are jumping in on that. Giant corporations are going out of their way to increase prices, and they're trying to use things like the war to justify their price gouging. And all of this is happening at a time when companies are also aggressively pushing against any wage increases or even basic things like public health care. This is putting workers in a position that's incredibly difficult because, of course, many workers today have an incredible amount of student debt that they have to deal with. And then, of course, you have the tons and tons of consumer debt, that you have the cost of vehicles that people need to go to work. People are swimming in debt. But with people swimming in debt, the cost of living rapidly increasing, and jobs not paying very much, a lot of people are starting to realize that in their current positions, they're actually losing money going to work, that the cost of maintaining themselves to go to work is actually a lot more. People are also starting to realize that they can just have a better economic opportunity jumping away to do things like streaming on Twitch and YouTube. And a lot of people are also just working 2 and 3 jobs. All of these things layer up on top of each other where a bunch of people are just quitting their jobs. And the reason why capitalists are freaking out about this is because this is the single most powerful tool that working class people have. You see, they don't like to admit it, but CEOs and shareholders can only make the money that they do as long as workers keep going to work. It turns out that all of the real value that is produced in our economy is produced by workers. And so workers quitting their jobs and demanding higher wages, or workers unionizing, are a big threat to the profits of capitalists who basically over the past 20 years haven't had to deal with any type of major labor movement. Now, this is in part due to the fact that there are very few politicians that actually support militant labor unions. They would much rather labor unions work with industry leaders in order to represent the industry as opposed to being an oppositional force against capital. But now labor unions are starting to demand a lot more, and workers are starting to demand a lot more, and that largely is coming out of pure necessity. And I'm going to go ahead and make a bold claim that this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of media outlets have been shifting aggressively to the right in an effort to push back against people on the left, or even just workers who are fighting for ultimately leftist ends, but outside of the political economy of electoral politics and engaging in a politics of direct action and strikes and quitting. By withholding labor, workers are more capable of demanding higher wages and better benefit. And sometimes workers could even demand a heck of a lot more. And this is where it's a major struggle that a lot of Americans don't have the labor history understanding to know exactly how powerful workers organized can be. If you look at past labor movements, some things that have been managed successfully are things like fighting for the government to fund housing cooperatives through things like revenue bonds or through direct purchases or even eminent domain to support the construction of housing cooperatives to make sure that workers have comfortable, safe places to live that have a very low cost of living. There's also been precedent of tenants going on strike and then getting their landlords to sell their property to them. And there's even instances of workers doing the same thing in order to purchase their workplace and convert it into a worker cooperative. And in other countries, workers have managed to run very successful land reform programs for the government to just hand over rental properties, businesses, land to workers so that they can structure their own cooperatives, whether they be independent cooperatives or state-run cooperatives. These structures are things that make sure that workers have low cost of living and not only have high wages, but also have a real share of the profits. There's also been very powerful socialist movements around the world that have used labor power in order to fight for things like universal health care and larger government education programs, things that make sure that working class people not only have real access to economic opportunity, but also have structures and safety nets to make sure that working class people don't fall through the cracks. That, fundamentally, is what the New York Times is scared of, and that is what capitalists are scared of today. They are scared that workers quitting their jobs now and workers being upset about the increase in cost of living that is artificially being imposed on them by companies that claim they're being impacted by inflation will turn around, look at the history of these socialist movements, look at the history of labor movements around the world, and start demanding those same policies here. And so as capitalists squeeze the working class even harder, they are freaking out about the response that they might see from the working class. The biggest irony of this, though, is that despite the fact that the media is freaking out about this, and despite the fact that these capitalists are freaking out about this, these companies aren't really doing anything to combat the inflation that they are causing. They are still increasing the exploitation that they're doing because in the short term, it always makes sense for them to just squeeze people even a little bit more, to demand even more rent, to demand higher costs for groceries, even if they know that it makes the long-term stability of capitalism a near impossibility. They still just keep trying to squeeze more of a profit out of working class people. This is Ben Carollo with Rebel Headquarters. You can catch my show Galaxy Brain on the Young Turks Twitch channel every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to stay up to date with my content, you can follow me at Benjamin Carollo on Twitter. And for those of you that might be wondering or have noticed, my pronouns are in fact she, her.